You're listening to Risk and Resolve, where leadership, business, and risk management collide. We bring you real conversations, sharp insights, and strategies for success. And now for your hosts, Ben Connor and Todd Hufford.
Welcome back to another episode of Risk and Resolve. I am Ben Connor, your host today with no Todd Hufford, but today we have special guests that are personal to me that I'm super excited to have. We have Rick Reisinger and Ron Young, the legendary pair from Heritage Christian basketball lore, in person today. This is our second episode that we've ever recorded in person, and I'm just super thrilled to be with you guys today and to have my old friends back together. Thanks for coming.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's kind of exciting to get back. It's been a long time since all three of us gotten together at one time.
Yeah. Getting the band back together.
A long time.
Yeah, it has been a long time. Too long, really. And I'm just really excited to kind of rehash those old memories, things we've learned along the way, and obviously our old friend Doc and what he meant to us. But just to get the audience acquainted with our stories, and really just of how like each of us have individually met. If I go back in my memory, Ron, I'm going to start with you. If I go back in my memory, I think the first time we really like bonded was when we were missions trip to Haiti.
Yeah,
it was Heritage. I think it was the year 2000. Is that right?
1997, I think. When did you graduate from high school?
2002.
Ooh.
And here's why I think it was 2000. It was when the Pacers were in the NBA Finals.
That's right. Yeah. And the guy had a TV, but he wouldn't let us see it.
Yeah, that's right. We just had to find out later who won.
Day. Yeah.
That's right. But so we bonded over that mission trip experience.
You were called Jalen, wasn't it? Yeah, and I was called Reggie.
So we were playing basketball out at the little dirt hoop, basically. Actually, after the concrete we just poured. Yes. And they were like, oh, Indiana Pacers. And you're right-handed, I'm left-handed. So, of course, you became Reggie Miller, and I was Jalen Rose. And
that was back in the days when I could shoot a three-pointer. Now I just throw it with both hands.
Throw it towards there. But yeah, that was when we first met. I will tell you, though, I'll never forget when we would have, because I was in high school, your daughter was a year younger.
Yes.
And I remember going to some parties, or there was even, I think, a get-together at our house, and you would drop Laura off, and you would stay in the driveway. And I was like, man, this guy is intense. Like, he's just staying out there. And I was kind of afraid of you. And then I come to understand in Haiti, I certainly didn't need to be afraid of you, that you were an amazing person, and our friendship kicked off there.
Yes.
And then Rick, we met in passing a few times. I think it was always connected to Doc.
Yes.
I think you guys would show up on some of our basketball road trips, and Doc would take us to somewhere where he was playing ball and you were playing with him. And then we really started to get to know you when Megan came to Heritage and you guys moved, right?
Yes, we lived in Terre Haute, and Megan, my youngest daughter, moved. We moved from Terre Haute over to Indianapolis, and she went to Heritage her senior year. And we had some connections because I knew Doc and played a lot of basketball, some tennis, but a lot of basketball up to that point. And then I got a little bit involved with AAU, did some AAU with Doc's daughter and Megan. And that was 23, 24. And that was my association with Heritage once Megan got there as a senior. And knowing Doc, kind of started going in and helping some practices, and had a real good relationship both on the court and off the court. But that was it. And the first time I met Ron was that summer when his AAU, and I can't remember what city, Bedford or someplace, that you and Doc were sitting up in the stands, and I was coaching, and then Hannah and Megan and that group. That was the first time I saw Ronnie. And then I think through the Heritage connection and being around Doc, that's when I first met you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So you guys met just in you're coaching AAU, and then you and Doc were an
Watching along.
inseparable pair. So you guys were sitting there watching your player on his team. Actually, you probably had a couple players on that team, right?
I would say this about Rick. My first time that I met him,
Be nice.
it was, people always said that people at Heritage Christian recruited. I probably worked harder trying to make sure Rick came to Heritage to help out than I ever talked to any player
Yeah.
or any parent, because Doc made the comment, we need to get Rick at campus
Yeah.
and to help. And I knew if Rick came, we got Megan,
Yeah, right.
and she would play. And I could tell real quick, Rick knew what he's talking about, even though he went to the wrong college.
And at that AAU game, I remember specifically because hardly anybody in the gym,
Right.
hot, and Doc and Ron are sitting probably on the 50th row at the top, like he couldn't come down. I'm kind of looking, I knew Doc, I said, I don't know who the guy is with him. But once the basketball started, and I did what I do on basketball. And then they came down afterwards, and that was kind of the first exposure to it. And actually, I think, I don't remember it would have been going into probably the senior year. But yeah, I saw him up there, and of course I knew Doc from all the basketball. And then Ronnie's hanging around with him, and they were like Abbott and Costello.
I thought it was Ball State. And
No,
we were in
it
Mexico.
was
down in Bedford. Huh?
Yeah, it was someplace down south, and we were in
Okay.
kind of a back gym, and
Yeah.
yes.
So the story, there's a lot of the story, and we're certainly not going to get to all of it today as much as I'd love to, but it centers around athletics, right?
Mhm.
And how a enjoyment for athletics and a team sport, and in general, basketball, just a lot of incredible things came from that. So just on a level set of passion for sports and basketball, if you guys could give a little bit of your personal sports athletic history, just for everyone's sake. Rick, we'll start with you. Just, what was it like growing and playing basketball, or did you play other sports too? And what did that look like?
Well, actually, I got the basketball interest from my father, who played at Ball State. When Branch McCracken was the coach there, and they beat Indiana, and then he went on and coached at Indiana. So my interest started with my dad. Obviously, we moved to Richmond. I was very young, and so I just did basketball, and then I also did baseball. So I kind of liked basketball and baseball equally, all the way up through high school. But I seemed to excel a little bit more in the basketball, so I had a real positive experience there. And I was fortunate enough to be on the 69 Indiana All-Stars with George McGinnis and Steve Downing in that group, and then went on and played at Purdue. So it was, basketball has always been kind of the focus, although even, and people ask me about the coaching, I had no desires to ever get into coaching, and we can get into a little bit of the story about how I did get into
Sure.
it. But I didn't want to necessarily coach, but I had daughters, and I tried to expose them, give them opportunities through basketball, and let them excel at whatever level they could excel. And Courtney went on and played at Toledo, and Megan was going to go to NAIA or D3 and decided not to, and that was fine in both cases. And then my son was a swimmer, so he wasn't interested in the basketball. So our friendships, I think, developed, and especially with Doc, developed around the game of basketball.
Mhm.
There were obviously other sports, but we all kind of merged together at Heritage, and even before that, through the game of basketball.
So you said Indiana All-Star. What was that like? Being selected to the team? Can you go back and kind of remember what you were thinking and what was going through your head as that opportunity presented itself? And obviously you excelled in the sport inside the state of Indiana, which is no small task. That's hard to do. What was your thought process when you were that age?
Well, it's interesting because I think as you get older, become an adult, you kind of look back and go, well, what did you accomplish or didn't accomplish? Um, and I'm not sure how I even accomplished that, because I can remember going into high school and was concerned about whether or not I'd be on the team. And then in those years, they only had three classes: the sophomore, junior, and senior. And I played JV at the sophomore level. I had a brother that was a senior that played, and I can remember just going, "Well, I hope I get to play." And then, okay, I looks like I'm going to get to play. I hope I get to do well. And just one thing left to another. I did work a lot off season. Had a great coach, Dick Baumgartner,
Mm-hmm.
best shooting coach in the world. And I remember early on when he developed the sure shot basketball, he got me in the gym as a sophomore and started changing my whole shot. And kind of the rest is history there, but he really developed me from a personal standpoint, from a shooting standpoint, but also just from a mentality and how you approach sports, and very ethical, not abusive, but very demanding.
Mm.
So it kind of piqued my interest from a basketball standpoint, not necessarily from a coaching standpoint, because that kind of came later on, but it was a positive experience to go through the All Stars. You kind of, that's a dream everybody has, but you don't
Sure.
think you're going to make it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you make it. And then of course, George McGinnis was just an outstanding. We can remember going down to Kentucky game. He had 53 points, 39 rebounds, and driving to the game. We played Kentucky second time. The first time we played in Indianapolis, I think George had like only 20 points or so, and we were driving down to Kentucky, and George was in the front seat. In those days, we went in cars, and there were 6 of us in a car, and he's reading the newspaper, and the player Tom Payne was talking about how McGinnis wasn't all that good, and they had 2 7-footers. And George was reading that, and George was just a great, great guy. And he's sitting there laughing and kind of reading this article, and he says, interesting, they don't think I'm very good. Well, the history speaks for itself. Goes down there, 53 points, 39 rebounds, blows out a tennis shoe, has to borrow a tennis shoe. Never came out of the game. I don't think any of the rest of us even got into the game, and it was a George night. So those experiences were great. But yeah, growing up and having those opportunities, it was nice, and it's nice to reflect back that, wow, I'm not sure how I did all that. And you got to be pretty modest with that, because there's a lot of people that do a lot of nice things with that. But
Yeah. Well, and then you went on to play at Purdue.
went on and played Purdue my freshman year. They had freshman teams. It was Rick Mount's senior year, and got to practice a little bit with Rick Mount. And I would say I didn't have a great experience, or when you go through middle school, grade school, middle school, high school, everybody has a certain level that they play, and then all of a sudden you kind of plateau out. And I think I probably plateaued out about my sophomore year at Purdue. Quite honestly, didn't work as hard as what I should have. I worked a lot harder getting in, trying to play high school basketball than I did at college. And sometimes I think, in retrospect, you kind of look back and you say, well, I've made it. I'm in college now. And sometimes as a young person, you kind of lose sight what it takes to get to the next level, whether it be sports, business, professional, singing, whatever it is. You have to continue to improve. Otherwise, you're falling behind.
Yeah.
There's usually no middle ground. So, but it was a positive experience. Did get my education paid for, so that was good.
Yeah. Any other life lessons? Obviously, you just shared a couple from that Purdue experience, but any other life lessons from that Purdue experience? Because, I mean, that's genuine to say, like, hey, yeah, I made it to Purdue, but maybe I wish it would have gone differently. Or what did you take? Is there anything else you took away from that?
Well, it took me several years to try to figure that out. But you always have to have the desire to get better at whatever you're doing in life, whether it be sports or anything else. If you want to achieve, it's up to you to achieve. It's not up to someone else to motivate you. And I think in that relationship to the basketball, I didn't work out the same in trying to improve to the next level, because I think sometimes people have a tendency to, I've made it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in hindsight now, at the age I'm at, you probably never make it. You're always on a path of going someplace. And it could be spiritually, sports wise, business, or whatever. And I think that's the key. And I think I probably lost a little bit of perspective at that age and that experience because I just assumed at that level now, well, it'll be the next year. I'll be in there next year,
Yeah.
and then the next year. And I was fortunate enough to start. I think it was 4 games as a senior, but I think that was because we had a new coach and he was giving the senior guy a kind of a break. But I didn't put in the same efforts that I did growing up. In hindsight, I even tell my kids now you got to keep working, and even players today sometimes they work hard, work hard, work hard, but then they don't improve. They stay level, not realizing that there's other people out there, again, in business or whatever, that are improving.
Yeah.
And that's your competition. You're either getting prepared for the competition or prepared for that job, prepared for that promotion. You've got to be ready for the next opportunity. And when you're not, quite honestly, now you're starting to fall behind. And some people, that's fine. There's nothing wrong. But if you have aspirations of wanting to do something, and I did, I saw myself as a starting shooting guard at Purdue, and it never really happened that way. And I was, well, what happened? And I used to get kind of mad at school because they didn't give me the opportunity. In hindsight, as I look back, no, everybody has the same opportunity. It's whether or not you seize that moment to get that opportunity. And I think that's what's critical.
Yeah.
And not
Hard-
just sports, but
Yeah.
anything.
Hard lesson to learn in the moment, but what a great lesson to learn early
Yep.
at college. Thanks for sharing that. Ron, your sports journey, Pike High School.
I got to play basketball with the varsity my junior and senior year. My cousin, Norm Starkey, was the head basketball coach. He made the comment to me my sophomore year, family does not need you to be on the varsity this year because Pike Township's too small and it will not go over well. So I played reserve my sophomore year, but played every day in practice, warming up against the varsity guys, and got it a lot better. I also played tennis and was the number one man all 4 years on the Pike team. So I thought I would go to Ball State or someplace to play tennis and maybe try to play for play some basketball. And did not want to go to IU or Purdue because I knew I wasn't that good. And I ended up at back then it was Indiana Central. It's now UIndy. And I can remember the first day I went to UIndy, we had fences for nets on the tennis courts.
Wow.
And I went, where did I go?
What year was that, Ron?
It was a year before you, Smarty. So I played number one all 4 years at Indiana Central. Had a good time. I had breakfast this morning with a guy that was my junior year roommate, and he played tennis also. And he reminded me of, I had a 63 Galaxy, and sometimes I would drive. I think I had 6 different coaches in all 4 years, and we played spring and fall.
Okay.
And he reminded me that he remembers the time that I pulled the Galaxy into a station someplace we were up north, and I said, check the gas and fill up the oil. That sucker just burned big time. And so that's what I kind of remember. I played varsity basketball the last 2 years at Indiana Central. Kind of didn't play a whole lot. I was like the third string point guard. And I was a 16th senior, so didn't play a whole lot. My junior year, I got injured. Remember Angus Nickerson was the head coach. And I remember my junior year, he called me up to go in and wanted to know if I knew Taylor University's guard that was kind of tearing us up. And I said, yeah, I know who he is. And he said, so you played tennis against him? And I said, yeah, we played tennis and I beat him. He says, well, can you stop him on the basketball team? I said, certainly. So I got to play 10 minutes, second 10 minutes of the first half, started the second half, played 10 minutes, and I was dying because I was not in very good, in good enough shape. And sprained an ankle the next day in practice. And that kind of took care of my junior year. In my senior year, I was basically a 25-point guy. We were either up 25 and I got in, or we were down 25 and I got in. So that was it. Played a lot of tennis after school. Went to work at American States Insurance Company, and they moved me from Seattle to LA to Orlando, and got in an apartment complex. And about the third question on the application was, do you play tennis? And I started playing tennis on the apartment complex team. And my doubles partner was from one of the smaller schools in Florida, and got to be known in Florida. And I played a lot. And I remember the pro telling me at a country club that I joined, you either got to quit your day job or to get much better in tennis. So pro-ams, I could be the amateur in the pro-ams and keep my own. So that was fun. And I came back to Indianapolis with American States Insurance Company. And that's when I met Doc and the guy in the scrubs hitting the tennis ball. And so I, once American States got sold to Safeco, I was not real thrilled, but I was there. And I asked Doc if I could play tennis with him sometimes and maybe help out with the tennis team and hit with some of the guys there. And that's how I got on the tennis circuit with Doc. And then he, one day, but the first or second week, he says, come on, let's go in the gym. And I'm following him in and doing whatever Doc says. And Hannah was in on the floor shooting around. And he said, guard Hannah. I want to see if you can stop her. And that's the first time I met his daughter. And this was in the fall of her freshman year. And he made the comment, I was just kind of ho-ha playing some basketball. And he says, come on, step it up, stop her. And so we started playing pretty good basketball at that point against each other. And I walked out. I said, we need to get back to the tennis team. And he, as we were walking out, I says, oh, who's going to be this was going to be his first year as the head coach. And I asked him who his assistant was going to be on the basketball team. And he said, you are. That was your application for seeing if you were good enough to be my assistant girls basketball coach. And 20 years later, with Rick for 15 of them, I was blessed.
Yeah.
I was really blessed with the girls I got to meet.
Yeah. So, excuse me. So you got to meet Doc, and that's probably the 2000 time frame as well, kind of that same time period where we met. And so you were quickly into the basketball realm at Heritage. You knew Doc, Rick, a lot of time before that, right? How did you meet Doc?
It was several years before that, and I worked at that time it was GTE. It's now Verizon, but GTE, and we had a little company team, and we got into a tournament and played basketball, and I played against this guy that had his hair going all different directions and had the scrubs and just on a very good team. The other guys as well, David, and I can't think of the other names at this point, but I played against them. And then after that, evidently must have a pretty good game, because knowing Doc, you had to have a good game. Otherwise, he probably wouldn't talk to you. And had a good game against it. And after the game, you say, hey, who are you? And are you interested in playing basketball? I said, yeah. And then that basically was it. I played with Doc, and it was Doc and Andy,
Richard.
Richard and David, and Doc and I. There were four of us, and we played probably, I don't know, I'm going to say 2, 3, 4 years of competitive basketball, and we'd pick up different players to play, but we were a little bit older than everybody.
How old would you have been in that time frame?
In my 40s.
Okay.
So it was competitive, but we knew how to play the game. So we would go up against some pretty college type players, but they played what I call the YMCA type basketball, and we've just moved the ball around. Andy is big inside. David could shoot lights out. Doc was the point guard and would back down dribble if he had to get the ball all the way down. But we just played good, solid basketball, and we very seldom ever lost. So that was the first experience being around Doc, and also learned, and we can get into this later, but also learned how competitive he was.
Oh yeah.
So focused, whether it be as a doctor, as tennis, but as basketball, uh, losing was not an option, but it was in a positive way. So we played and played and played and traveled around a little bit and played. So that was my exposure to Doc before Heritage.
Yeah.
And then the rest kind of was history, but started doing a little bit of AU coaching and did some of the Heritage girls, and we moved over and et cetera, et cetera. So I knew Doc before the Heritage experience.
When you think about playing basketball with those guys, and it's interesting, like there would be no reason for me to know those guys and those names. Doc's not my dad. He coached me in middle school,
Yeah.
but he said those names and it was, oh yeah, I remember those guys. Doc seemed to just meet people and collect friends and connections everywhere he went. It was unbelievable. But when you think of playing basketball, what core memories come to your mind of games that you had or interesting experiences that the four of you guys had as you were playing ball for that period of time together?
Well, two come to mind. Every year, Doc would load us up. His dad would drive in the big SUV, and there were like 4 or 5 of us jammed in there, and we'd sleep actually laid the bed down, and we'd sleep in there, and we traveled down to Kentucky, and we played in this big tournament out in it was Christian camp facility, but there were some pretty good teams in there, and we got in at 2:00 in the morning. We played at 7:00 in the morning, and we lost that first game. But then we end up and we won that tournament. We won it 2 years in a row, and we got down there, and there were some teams, and the opponents would kind of look at us like, who are these guys? But we just knew how to play and win, and won that 2 years in a row. Yeah, the other time we went up to Huntington College, and we're going to do a scrimmage with Huntington, and it was Doc and Andy and myself and a couple others. Matt Shade was with us a couple of times, and we were getting ready for the game, and the coach comes in, and he kind of goes, "Well, where's the team?" And Doc and his wisdom go, "Well, we are the team, and you guys are the ones that are going to be playing us. Is there anybody else coming?" Because he was expecting some 6'9" and all that kind of stuff, and said, "No, we'll play." And we got beat, but we were competitive against them. So those two things kind of pop out. Other games were just went up to played outdoor Marion in one of those summer leagues at 95 degrees and just so hot. And we thought we were all going to pass out, but we played out there and we won that tournament. And people just looked at us like, who are these guys? But again, we didn't have uniforms that matched, and we came from different styles. Each one of us had a different style of playing. So, but when I think back, the most fun I had playing basketball was probably in those days. It was just free spirited, know how to win. Doc would always kind of And I mean, if you made a mistake, Doc would tell you. He'd say something about you can't do that. Give me the ball, type of thing. Um, but those were very positive experience from basketball. The other stuff was good, but it was organized basketball. That was freelance guys getting together. It's kind of like the Jersey Boys, the street corner. We just had a good time.
Where's the strangest place you guys ever played?
Do you know about this? Is that why you're asking the question?
Maybe.
When we went to the penitentiary?
Yeah.
Yep. Doc, bless his heart, always got us in different situations, but we went to the Pendleton Penitentiary to play basketball. And of course, Doc, if we're going to play there, we'll go there. So we go there, and it was hardcore penitentiary. It wasn't like we went someplace and played their team. We went into the penitentiary, and I can remember walking in, and they checked all of our bags and everything, and they said, "Now you guys got to stay together." Okay, that's the first warning. And then we go into this gated area. They lock the gate behind us and then open the gate, and then we walk on in, and then we go through a search thing and all that. And we're kind of going, this is different. This is different. And then we go into the gym thinking it would be kind of secure and kind of gated off. No, it was, all the inmates were there up in the stands, and over on one side were the kind of what I would call open showers, not completely, but enough that, okay. And we played the penitentiary team. Doc, in his wisdom, elbows one of the guys, and the whole place just kind of went, shoo, stood up, and oh my gosh, we all kind of circled around to make sure there wasn't any problem here. But
he didn't change the way he played at all.
He had no, and there was only one guard in the whole facility. So to me, at least, I'm kind of the cautious guy. This is a concern because there's only one guard. There's probably 50 guys sitting around here. There's 10 of them wanting to play basketball, and they're going at it pretty good. But they were very respectful, because I think what happens if they didn't do the right things, then they wouldn't get to participate. Right. So that there was a motive for them to do that. But Doc elbowed this guy, and oh my gosh, we're not going to get out of here. And then I asked the guard walking out, what's he in for? He's only a teenager. Well, he's in for murder. Mm. No, well, that was a paradigm shift right there. Yeah. But that was probably the most unique place that Doc got us into, was playing at the penitentiary.
Yeah, that's.
How'd you know about that?
I've been around, man.
All right, all right.
I've been
heard
around
that story a couple of times.
Yeah, he was proud of that story, I think. Yeah. He enjoyed being in different places. I think he generally enjoyed going there and playing basketball. And he would, inner city, suburbs, out of state, in state. I think he really enjoyed playing different people, different styles, and really challenging himself. And you guys, can we compete? Are we good enough? And let's go.
Well, in his mind, and I think it's probably true, he could always compete. Now, skill levels and all that sometimes is different, but in his mind, I can compete with anybody. We went over and played outdoor court over by Ben Davis. It's a famous park. I can't think of the name, but the McGinnises and all those guys would go out there, outdoor court playing, and we're going up and down this asphalt court, and it was probably more than competitive. I'm kind of wondering, what are we doing here? Well, he gets elbowed, and blood's coming out of his nose, and Doc, are you okay? Give me the ball. Give me the ball. And I'm going, Doc, are you okay? And I think literally he was playing not totally cognizant yet. He was kind of, but give me the ball, give me the ball. And it was in hindsight, kind of the funniest thing. Doc, you all right? Give me the ball, give me the ball. So yeah, we would get into those situations that were just so much fun, and we had so much success with it, which made it even better.
So we brought up the name Doc. It's Mark Richards. He's a doctor in Carmel, obviously. He was the largest personality and the most unique person I've probably been around in my life. Ron, how would you describe Doc?
Most competitive person I've ever met.
Why do you say that?
And also the hairiest guy I've ever met.
Why is he the most competitive person?
I remember one time at Carmel Rocket Club, Doc and I were teammates, and it was a Sunday night, just a bunch of guys getting together. We win the first set 6-1. We're up about 6-1 or 6-2 or 4-2 or something like that in the second set. And I missed the forehand. I wasn't concentrating. I got told by Doc, every point counts. And that I learned a lot about him at that point. He was ready, and every point counted in basketball and in tennis. He never wanted just to relax and watch something. It was go, 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 and do the best you can, and always focused.
Yeah.
And that's what I remember the most about Doc.
How would you describe him?
Exactly the same. The most intense, focused, competitive, but never abusive or anything. No, he had a vision of how he wanted to do something. And if you were around him, he kind of expected you to do the same thing. Very, very focused. I mean, there's a lot of Doc stories. Like, we don't have time to get into all of them, but being around and watch him take apart a college level tennis player was just a thing of art. We were dating one time, and he was going to play this guy that played at college, and he's out there just firing away and all that. Doc had high top tennis shoes, had swimming trunks, had a sleeveless shirt on, and had a headband. And as he started playing, the headband slipped up instead of fixing it, he just left it there. And he was so good at tennis of controlling everything. And I remember watching this guy, he was just trying to hit past Doc, drop shots, the whole works. And Doc just returning everything, and just destroyed the guy because he knew how to play tennis. The other guy knew how to try to play tennis.
Yeah.
But that was just his intensity and focus on that kind of stuff. Tennis, I saw a little bit of, played one time, and I think he gave up on me on tennis. But he would get so focused on, this is how we need to do it, and it was easy to play with him because we all knew what we needed to do.
We knew what the goal was, and that was to win.
He didn't.
He's a great net. Rick's a great net man.
Yeah.
His reach goes forever.
He told me just to stand up here, and then if you did something wrong, he'd kind of go, but good to be around.
Yeah. So
A good guy, and I should say a very spiritual, good guy.
Yeah.
He was never out of track with everything. I mean, his life was the way his life was, his family, Cindy. If you were a friend of Doc, you were a friend.
he would go out of his way to make sure that you're taken care of. And he was incredible. Usually when someone is so competitive, it's the thing over everything else, right? And it just seemed that he, as competitive as he was, which was relentless competitive, he still had the eye of like, the people I'm doing this with matter. And the people part of this is very important to me. And
he was fair.
Yeah.
And he wanted to be treated fairly. I have the first game that we ever played, we were at Sheridan and easily beat Sheridan. But I remember walking out of the gym, and he says to Hannah, who was his daughter, freshman, didn't score. And Doc was walking in front of me with his arm around Hannah and goes, "You didn't score tonight. It's going to be a long 4 years if you don't start scoring." And I'm thinking, what have I got myself into?
Yeah.
But that was the first game, and we got back in a van that Heritage Christian provided for us and rode home. And I'm thinking, I hope she recovers from that. But that was Doc being competitive, telling Hannah what she needs to do. And she played a great 4 years.
Perfect picture of him.
Yeah.
Arm around someone. If you don't pick this up, it's going to be a long
Yeah.
4 years. Like, what a perfect example. So we talked about some memories we had, a description of Doc. So a little bit about Doc. I guess I'll share my kind of where I entered the scene on this whole thing. So, loved basketball growing up. And I was so excited because in 5th grade at Heritage, you get to try out for the basketball team. And it was a 5th and 6th grade basketball team. I was so pumped to be able to have that opportunity. And so tried out for the team. The coach was Doc Richards and made the team. There was like 12 kids on the team. I think 5 5th graders made it and the balance were 6th graders. And I was a little runt. But that was my first introduction with Doc. Played on his team in 5th grade, played on his team in 6th grade, and all through middle school. And he was the first person that outside of my parents, like, took an interest in me. I was not one of the best. I was good, but wasn't one of the best players. But I always remember, in fact, I actually didn't get, you guys know this about Doc. He was not into this equal playing time thing. Right?
Yeah. There were 5 people.
Shocking.
Yeah. That was
somebody else in this room that we're talking about was kind of that way too.
Yeah.
You?
So I had the experience of, I was not on the like inner 6 or 7, right? So I was towards the end of the bench, and I remember my parents asking, they're like, are you enjoying the team? And I was like, yeah. Because he had such a way of, even people that didn't play very much got better just with how he ran things, how he ran his practices. And I even look back to that, and that is such, I laughed to myself. So a bunch of 5th and 6th grade kids, right? A bunch of boys. And you got this 6'4" big, hairy guy that's playing with us in practice.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We do a couple drills with scrimmage the whole time, and it was meticulous. We'd play, he's like, oh, stop right there. And he'd talk through, why did you make that pass? Does that pass add any value? And he'd walk through some of those things. And then just when we got into games, just the focus of mental intensity of what are you thinking? Why did you do that? What are we, how do we solve this problem? But anyway, so that was my experience with Doc. Was 5th and 6th grade. He'd always invite me to go along, even though I was never in the inner 5, top 7 players. But anytime I went and played basketball with any other team, I was at the top, just because I always got better through playing with him. So that was kind of my entry. And then he helped coach in high school because I was in his son's grade, Zach. And then my senior year, my junior year, I got hurt, had shoulder surgery, coming back to a new coach at Heritage. This experience wasn't going very well. And Doc was like, hey, why don't you come and coach with me on the girls' side? And I was like, well, okay. And you know how Doc is, he's going to get the answer that he wants, right? So I went and coached with him and Ron with you, and kind of the rest is history from there. And just making friends. I was the only 16-year-old or 17-year-old with, 40-year-old best friends. But that was my story with Doc and with you, Ron.
Well, he also was instrumental in getting Heritage in the IHSAA.
Yeah.
mean, I wasn't around in those days, but I think it would have been what, 03 or 04.
Oh, 03 we became eligible.
Petition to get into the IHSAA, and he had to go on probation, I think 1 year, something like that.
That was my senior year.
And he got that whole the heritage thing started by being instrumental in that.
Yeah. So I took some notes. So Doc coached the Heritage girls team, Doc and Ron, for 5 seasons, and they were not good before he got there.
No,
the girls team. They were okay. I mean, 500 at best. But he coached 5 seasons, had a record of 85-28. Made it to the state finals 1 year, 2004.
Well, yeah.
And won 3 sectional championships after finally getting into the IHSAA. So that was his story. And then
that section, the 3 sectionals were the 3 we were eligible for.
Correct. Perfect.
And then we went with Rick as coach, 15-0.
Right.
So
real quick
I think for city championship, 15-0, not sectional.
And in 05, when Doc passed, I think one of Doc's biggest wishes out of all the success he had was that state championship in 04. And I think that was very disappointing that he didn't get that, because I remember being assistant coach on that team. That was, and you were around him even more than I was, but he wanted that so bad. I think that was really heartbreaking for him, as it is for everybody, but especially for him coming through, getting the school into the association, into the tournament, and then having the success that he had, and then getting so close. That was a sad moment, I think.
Yeah. And he's just he's a competitor, but also, when I think of Doc, I think winner. He always found a way to win. And it wasn't like wasn't necessarily like a win at all cost type thing, but it's more of we have to figure it out. We have to play the game right and adjust so we have a chance to win. Like, that was just his mentality. It taught me a lot about mental toughness and figuring things out, but he was just such a winner. You brought up 2005, 2006. So, and you guys walked through him closely. You guys were his best friends. So in 2005, he tragically passed away. Rick, on your birthday, September 23rd.
Yeah, I remember that spring, he started having some back trouble, and he had helped a lady out of his doctor's office because they had to get an ambulance or something. He carried her out, and he started having some back trouble. And correct me if I'm stating any of this, but he was that summer kind of wearing a back brace and was, concerned about it and going through tests, and being a doctor, he knew a certain amount of it. Long story short, it was cancer. And on September 23rd, he had passed away from the cancer. I remember my daughter or Ron called me and said that Doc had passed away. And then my daughter called Courtney and said, happy birthday, Dad. I said, yeah, but Doc passed away. And then Megan passed away, or called, made the same. And so it was kind of it was a birthday, but it was a kind of a sad day because we lost a very good friend.
Yeah. And you guys were walking alongside him, obviously, with coaching. You coached with him from the beginning, so all 5 seasons. You started more recent than that, helping out with coaching, right?
I was helping in practices some. I was there for the 04 state tournament, and then that had been 03, 04. And the year that my daughter Megan played, I didn't help out as much. Because being a father and being a coach, and I thought it was good to kind of step back a little bit. But that was the time frame. And then, of course, he passed away in 05. And then Jeff Hester, who was an AD, and we got you guys knew Jeff extremely well, and I got to know Jeff. Asked whether or not, because practice was just around the corner, wanted to know whether or not I'd be interested in going ahead and taking that season. Um, and again, I had said earlier I never really wanted to get into coaching, and even as I got out of coaching at Heritage, I really didn't have any aspirations of getting back into coaching. But Hester asked me if I would do that, and I agreed to do it for that year, and then end up staying for 15 years. But had a it wasn't my coaching as much as the players that went through at that period of time, and we had just a real nice run.
Yeah,
But yeah,
absolutely.
that's how the whole thing came together. And Ron decided to stay with me. Um,
Did you agree as like that was your duty for your friend? Was
um,
that the mentality you had, or what was your decision-making process of going forward? Because you didn't have really, Megan graduated 4 years,
yeah.
3 years earlier, 4 years earlier. And
No, she graduated in 03.
Yeah, she graduated the year before they went to the state, because
yeah,
'03 is when I kind of stepped back a little bit, and then '04 I got back into it
yeah,
with Doc. So I was there and as an assistant coach, and Ron was there. So that was our trio.
yeah,
So when he passed away, and Jeff asked me if I would do it, I just agreed because I was already engaged in the program and helping Doc and Ron, and so just agreed to go ahead and do it because it just seemed like the right thing to do.
yeah.
Didn't think long term at all. Just okay, we gotta we gotta do it for Doc, and we got some stories going through that year, but Cindy was still around, and um, it was Leah. So we tried to really incorporate them that year in the state championship run. And I can remember going through and we'd win the sectional and then the regional, semi-state, and we always made sure we had both of them in the team pictures and part of the program. And it was interesting because people said, it seems like you don't really celebrate. And I can remember thinking, I no, we're just kind of on a mission here. It's kind of like next game up. And we didn't have pep rallies and do too much. Um, we just, okay, let's get ready because the expectation was I guess maybe it was a little bit of Doc's, okay, what's next?
Yeah.
And we're going to go win. And we're fortunate enough to go all the way through. Majority of that was because of the players that we had. And I always said, if I could just drive the bus and get the right people on the bus, we'll have success. And that's what happened for several years. So
I was the bus driver. It's,
well, it was a metaphor.
Yeah. So
You'd go through stop signs and
Yeah.
train tracks. Weren't
That
you
was
supposed
the
to stop at those tracks?
quiet.
so you were yeah, right, the train tracks. Oh, anyway, so you had a growing friendship with Doc through tennis. He said he covertly was on a mission to bring you along with him into basketball, which you had no chance to say no. But your friendship really grew, it seemed, in those first 5 years, coaching together and really being everywhere together.
Doc would call me during the day, and I'd go, "Yeah, I'll take it," and so I talked to him. And one time I asked him, I said, "Why do you call me? You're a doctor," and he goes, "Ron, I am so focused on my patients that I need some time to relax. And so I'll call you and chit chat about different things in basketball and whatever was going on. And it's my release." And that was our friendship. I felt as if I provided him someone that he could say a few things to. And I remember one day he said, "I got to go," and bye. And off he went. And I thought, man, that was kind of rude. And we went to practice that night. And I said, why'd you get off the phone so fast? He said, well, she collapsed on the treadmill, and he went over and saved her life.
Hmm.
Um, and I went, oh, okay. Well, anytime you got to go, you got to go. You know, let's get that straight. You know, but that was a friendship that we had, and that continued to grow when Rick took over. But
Yeah.
I remember getting a phone call. I was up in Wisconsin at a family camp, and it was Doc. And I remember exactly where I was standing. And it's the only time I ever heard him kind of cry. And he goes, I got cancer. And I said, I'll be home on Saturday and we can work, you know, we'll figure this out. And I walked into his house. There were no tears. We walked into his study, and it was almost as if we were strategizing how we were going to take care of. It was like a game plan.
Just his next opponent.
And he goes, you know, the bad news is occasionally you may have to coach this team. And I'm like, oh, okay, thanks a lot. You know, I'll try to do that. I haven't messed up too many times getting the balls to practice, you know.
Yeah.
But that was him. And then him telling me, he goes, Rick's going to be the head coach. You're going to stick around to be the assistant. Ron, you can't be the head coach. You're just not tough enough. But Rick can do it. And I went, okay, Doc.
Hmm.
And I knew that was the truth. But I remember Doc telling me that. And then when we won the state the first year, we took Leah. They were going to have a party at Heritage. And we went to the funeral, or we went to the cemetery and held hands and prayed for Doc's soul. And I think Rick and I held hands with Leah. And that was special. And then I remember Cindy calling me, where are you guys? We're at the cemetery. We're on our way back to Heritage to celebrate. And it was a special time.
Yeah.
That all happened in a matter of, I think he started having the back issues in June and had passed away at the end of September. I mean, so that was a short window.
We went the 8th week that they had camp, and it was like the 2nd week in August. So he basically lasted 6 weeks.
Wow.
From the time
Once
that
he found
knew,
out, yeah.
he knew. I think he knew before that, but basically he knew that cancer had spread, and he made it about 6 weeks.
And how did you find out that he passed away? Were you there?
I was standing at the end of his bed, and I remember my wife saying, am I wrong? I want to applaud. Talk about a life well lived. It was Doc's. And in the first phone call I made was I called Rick. And I left looking at the bed, looking at Doc from the end of his bed. And I walked over in the living room of his house and I called Rick. And then I felt bad, it's his birthday. Geez, way to go, Ron.
Yeah.
He had faith, believed in God, and he had told me that I have no fear of dying.
Pretty powerful.
Yeah.
What I do have a fear of is not seeing my kids grow and grandkids.
Okay, I'm going to start crying if we don't lighten this up a little bit.
So I remember you called me. I was at Indiana Wesleyan as a senior. I remember exactly where I was. It's interesting. I've talked to several people. When you bring up Doc and him passing away, most people who just broadly knew Doc would say, well, I know exactly where I was.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I was walking into the student center at Indiana Wesleyan, and I remember call on my phone, Ron Young, and I knew right then. I was like, "This is not good." And I remember you telling me, um,
I remember about the year before, you called me one night and wanted to know if Doc and I would come up and wanted to spend the weekend with you. And I'm
yeah,
thinking, one of these days he's going to be 40 or 50 years old and realize going to a college campus and spending the weekend is not high on my priority list.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I was a 20-year-old kid at that time who's really like obviously had good friends from my high school experience and that kind of thing, but you guys were close friends enough where it's like, hey, come up here and let's play some ball.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's take it to some of my buddies up here, show them how to do this. But yeah, that was a special relationship. So you mentioned it a little bit of Hester asked, he said, will you take the helm? Apparently Doc already had that all arranged. So again, another example of you probably didn't have a chance to say no. But you guys had incredible young talent on the team. With Kelly Ferris, Claire Freeman, Emily Anderson, a couple others for sure. But they're freshmen. They're
Dixon and Turner.
Yeah. You had experienced seniors too.
Yeah.
So it kind of all came together with real young talent and just some real experienced, tough kids. What was that? You mentioned it was on a mission. Is there any other way you guys would describe that season?
Well, it was interesting because I'm not sure that we knew what we didn't know. We just went about doing it. And I think in hindsight, as I'm around sports a lot, and especially high school basketball, successful teams usually have a anchor player that's special. And then they have some other players that are around that person. And then they have a third layer of I'll call them role players. It sounds bad, but it's not role players. But there's kind of three levels. And I think that first year we were blessed to have Kelly Ferris, who was the anchor player. And obviously through her career of going on at UConn and WNBA. And then we had good players around her. And then we had good supporting players. So the whole team came together. But that's what it takes to do what we did for 4 straight years of having that. And we had the same thing when Ty Harris got there and did the same thing. So we just went out and played, and we had that core makeup of what a team should look like.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at any successful team, that's the structure that team has.
Yeah, it's a blueprint.
That makeup.
Yeah.
That's the model. And so we were blessed to have that situation for the 4 years. Transitioned a little bit from some of their players, but Claire and Kelly and Emily, they were there for the 4 years. Once we established what we wanted to do from and I, having never really coached other than AAU, in my mind, I had certain things that I wanted to do. I remember the matchup 3-2 zone, and we drilled that in. In fact, we played mostly that in 4 years and not much man-to-man. I asked Ron to run practice one time and do that. He had no idea after 4 years what a 3-2 matchup zone was. So Doc was right in putting his role where he was. But we had the model. We had 2 great runs at Heritage, and it was both teams had that kind of model to go after. And some teams will do it with just an overall good team, but in most cases they've got that structure. Blessed to have that structure as a team. And even if you go into the professional level, just recently with the Knicks, for example, you can just see that.
Yeah.
When you have the go-to person, makes all the difference in the world.
Kelly, I remember her freshman year. She never spoke a word, and we would tell her, shoot. But she made sure it was a team effort. And I remember after the season was over, I was walking down the hall at Heritage Christian, and Kelly walked up and said something to me and spoke about 5 or 6 sentences. And I went, this is more than she's talked to me all year. But she was very focused and a team player. And I remember when she came, Doc was still alive, and she came to a practice like June of that year before he died in September. And I said, I understand you're thinking you're not going to play in Plainfield. You're thinking of playing someplace else. Uh-huh. Where are you thinking about playing? Here or Cathedral. And I said, well, I sure hope you come here. Okay.
Well, Claire probably helped that out too.
Oh,
I
it
would
was because of
suggest
Claire,
so.
because her and Claire had decided they're going to play together.
Yeah, of course.
And so, and Claire's mom worked at Heritage.
Right.
So it was, I don't think the Freemans wanted to pay money for Claire to go someplace else to
Right.
play.
Well,
And they had 3 kids. And in Hannah's class was the oldest, Cassie,
Yep.
who's now and was on the All-Star team and now is the head coach at Taylor University. But I think Kelly was our first anchor player, and we won the state all 4 years that they played. Overtime her senior year. And
Yep.
Claire hit a
Miracle
unbelievable, of which 2 nights later, I finally got to see the tape of what happened because Rick is asking me a question during that time. And I'm going, I don't know if we got a timeout left or not. But luckily, he didn't call timeout, and Claire's basket counted.
All right.
So we won it against Oak Hill last 2 years.
So, don't know if you've recounted this. You probably know this, but for our listeners, record of 330 and 75 at Heritage. 7 state championships, 9 regional championships, 11 sectional championships. Obviously, there's semi-states in there and that kind of thing too. But holy smokes! Not only did you do that in 2A, but you guys got bumped up to 3A. Then you got bumped up to 4A, and you guys. I mean, no other Heritage team has ever done that. No other Heritage coach has ever had that experience. Not only that success, but even moving throughout different classes.
And it's an interesting reaction to that. First, regarding the team, I think we all gelled together, and partly because of Ron. He was kind of the mother hen, so to speak, and oversaw personalities and all that kind of stuff. But I think we all got along pretty well. And there's a philosophy that when you're on one side of the sideline, you should be friends, respectful, and all that. When you cross the line, now you're in I'll call it doc mode. You're now in competitive to win mode.
Yep.
It's not good enough just to go out and compete. You got to go out, compete, and win. But in regards to those records, I do cherish them now. I probably value them more now than I did at the time. But the interesting thing is, and I was asked this question the other day from a news reporter, what do you remember the most about your coaching record? And there's 2 games that I remember the most. It's the 2 that we lost, that we should have won at the state when we lost against South Bend St. Joe. I think it was in the regionals at the last second shot. And then they went on to win the state. In my mind, that game sticks out more than the wins. And then also the last season that I coached, the COVID year, 20, where we got beat by Brownstown Central. We had a real good team, Ari and Sidney Wiggins. That was a team. That was a state level team, and we got upset. Those are the 2 games I probably remember the most compared to the others that were. And that maybe that's human nature. Gosh, why didn't we do it then?
I remember both those games.
Yeah.
What games do you remember the most?
Those two, and also the year that Harris was a freshman and we lost in the semifinals, semi-state,
Yeah.
and
Evansville.
yeah, we missed the last second shot and wide open, and she usually hit them, and it was like, we lost, and or we would have won 8 years in a row.
I think that that was against Evansville down at Bedford, and Peyton took that corner shot would have won the game. But I think that locked Ty into going. We're not going to lose again.
Yeah,
because Kelly just came off of 4 state championships, and Ty had the same competitive desires. And by losing that game, I think probably if you'd ask her today, she goes, "I remember that," and I kind of committed that this is not going to happen again.
she played a good game last night.
Yeah.
For the Fever.
What so when you talk about basketball philosophy, when you approach the game, what were some of the things that were really core to what you tried to accomplish through the, like, kind of an X's and O's question, but like when you think of your basketball philosophy, how would you describe it? What were things that were important with your style and that kind of thing?
Well, I would say first that when I first started coaching, it was a little different than what it is now. Back in those days, teams ran a little bit more structured offenses, for examples, and defenses. And now it's more spread 5, dribble, weave, drives, and that it's an open offense now compared back in those days. But from a style standpoint, Dick Baumgartner at Richmond, we ran a 3-2 matchup zone that people say they know what a matchup zone. I'm not sure they totally do, but that's pretty much exclusively ran a 3-2 matchup zone, and then put in certain slides and dribble rules. Had Kelly on the point, so that was significant. So we played very little man to man, actually. When in hindsight, it was match up, and it caused people a lot of trouble, and especially without the open offenses, it fell right into the trap of a zone.
Well, some announcers for some of the ball games I'd listen to
Yeah.
afterwards, they didn't know what we were doing.
They thought
either.
you were in a man-to-man for
Yeah.
about
Yeah,
And
a
then they'd
full
go,
quarter
"Huh?"
of the game.
yeah, yeah, and so that was defensively, that was a philosophy. Offensively, get it out and go. And I kind of expanded that later on, but for the most part, it was based on Loyola Marymount back in Hank Gather's days. They tried to score within 10 minutes or 10 seconds. We didn't try to score within 10 seconds, but we wanted to get the ball up the floor mid-court by 3.5 seconds. So, and Kelly was rebounding and kicking it out, and we would run. In fact, I don't know if it's the first championship or the second, but I remember Dixon's was the free throw line, and she was saying something to the team that, we've got this, we can get this. And we had like 3 or 4 quick fast breaks down to score. And so it was very up tempo offense, which I think sometimes it's hard to practice against that. The other philosophy is I thought we should always be prepared. We got scouting reports that Ron I could talk about, but we would scout everybody, and we'd put together a pretty elaborate scouting report and then go through that. How well all the girls listened, I don't know, but at least it satisfied our need. But we did kind of
Based on the record, I would say they did all right.
Well, we kind of knew what they're going to do and who they're going to do. It's just a matter of whether or not we react to that. But if you're not prepared, then you're prepared to potentially lose. So we try to make sure as coaches that we gave them every opportunity to have the most success that they possibly could. And I think that helped out.
I remember Natalie Orr, first game. She goes, "What's this?" And you were handing out a scouting report. And she came over after 2 years of Park tutor. And she said, well, we never got anything like this. And I was thinking, well, everybody does this. But she was really surprised to get one. And then also she made the comment one day in practice, what's cowboy? What's cowboy mean? And he had used that term as one of our players was a little, um,
Rogue.
Out of
yeah,
bounds.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so he would call her cowboy. And
That wasn't a good thing either.
That's
Being a
reel it in.
cowboy.
Reel it in.
yeah, that was not good. And so they thought cowboy meant a certain play. And so they had 4 or 5 different plays that they thought was cowboy. And it was just Rick talking to one of the players, calm down, calm down.
Rick,
There was a certain intensity level. I can remember starting out. I was, in hindsight, I got, man, I really was that intense. But I can remember almost coaching possession by possession, and probably yelling more than what I would today. And later in my career, I didn't yell as much. But I think there was a certain expectation to put them in a position to win, and that seemed probably to merge together. I think sometimes this day and age, it's harder and harder for coaches to have that, for a lot of different reasons. But um, we were intense and had high expectations, and I think the girls responded to that.
Well, I know you were intense because of the first or second game, I made a suggestion to you, and you looked at me and said, are you telling me what to do?
No, I
And
didn't.
I'm like, no, 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 no. I'm only making a suggestion. And
No.
I remember one suggestion, which was taken, that I made. And I said, Kelly's not in there right now. Do you want her in? And he goes, yeah, of course. Yes, yes. So we put Kelly into a game that occasionally she would actually get to rest.
right.
But we put her in the game. But I still remember Rick looking at me.
Ooh,
Yes.
I think
you want to do what?
I think one thing that I learned a lot of things from you guys. I got to coach with you guys from 2000 fall of 2007 to 2012, I think, roughly. I learned a lot from you guys. One of the things I learned was you guys had a great ability to have high expectations, but you also kept it fun and lighthearted, and you recognized they were kids and to enjoy the journey and that kind of thing. So I thought you guys did an incredible job around that. Another thing that I always remember, because I coached the JV team, and
I had forgotten about that.
Yeah.
What was your record?
this not for a JV squad, it was actually pretty good.
Heritage Christian had top ranked people, but when you got down to about 15th or 20th, the caliber was not quite there.
I thought the caliber was fine, but to follow that schedule that you guys commanded from the varsity and playing like the
we played a lot of-
Bolingbrookes and Whitney Youngs and
We had a lot of 4A
Carmels
schools.
and Fishers and HSEs. That's a tough ask for a JV, but we did pretty well. But I'll never forget. I think we were playing Fishers or something like that, and you guys are watching, and we're competitive, and you're like, "Hey Ben, I think you need to try this." No, no, it's not going to work, because of whatever. And you were like, just try it. And sure enough, tried the thing. It worked. And I don't know. I learned a lot from that, of just taking advice and just going with it.
I remember you looking at Rick and I one time, and you only had 6 people on your team that year, and one of them hurt her shoulder and couldn't play. And Big Bird was going, help,
Bird.
take me out. And, our only advice was call timeout.
Yeah, that's right.
That was it.
How many you have left?
Yeah,
There's
that's
nobody
right.
on the bench.
Yeah. Oh man, that was so fun. We
I
had
think
such
we
a
had
good
a good time on one side of the line, respectful time. not giddy time, but and then when we got the other side of the line, then we went at and played.
Yeah.
And
You got, yeah. I mean, it was such a learning lesson of, again, basketball philosophy and that sort of thing. Ron, I want to ask you, when you talk about basketball philosophy and that sort of thing, um, you got the experience of assisting two excellent head coaches, Doc and Rick. Defensively, probably similar. Offensively, very different.
Doc was more of an man to man, and he knew what could win. But his I think in '05 we won the sectional, but we didn't win the regional, and they played a zone against us, and I don't think Doc knew what to do.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that was probably in my 20 years, might have been the weakest team we had. Because Hannah and Cassie had all graduated, and in the following year we had Claire and Kelly and Emily. But they were thrilled when they won the sectional, and we got to the regional and North Putman, I think it was. I don't know where that came from, but we did not play well, and I think that also helped Rick know, yeah, I could coach this, and I had confidence in Rick at that point that he knew what to do when somebody was playing a zone against
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
But they were both, great guys. Then, my job was to drive bus and get balls to. Now, only one time in 20 years did I forget the balls.
Yeah.
So I was,
well,
and I got probably credit for some of the best hugs. Armed up.
Side hugs.
Side hugs. Yeah.
So he's understating his responsibility, because when it came to pure on the court coaching, I would agree with everything he said, but behind the scenes, Ron was always there.
Yeah.
What do you need? What do the girls need? He was Mr. Heritage Christian in those, and it was nice because I could really just coach, and Ron did all the other stuff.
Everything was done.
And that's position sometimes it's understated, as I learned later on, but he was very instrumental in all that success, blended in a certain way of what the players were doing, which was outstanding, what I was trying to structure from a coaching standpoint. But then that third leg of that was Ron was always there, and there were times that he would get on somebody because they weren't doing stuff. Next time he was hugging somebody, and
Thank you.
you just knew he had your back, and he's there was what I would always call an inner circle. There's in coaching, there's inner circle, and then there's expanded circle, and then there's a big circle, and then there's the whole environment. If you ever wanted that inner circle, it was him.
Yeah.
Then we got along pretty well, didn't we?
Yes, we did. It was fun time.
Yeah. So just to go along to talk about some of those teams. What do you kind of hope that is the legacy or takeaway for your players from their experience of being on one of your teams?
There was probably starting out respect, that we respected them. I think they kind of respected us, although at times maybe they did not. I don't know. But we presented an opportunity for them to succeed, and they seized the moment and succeed. And I went through earlier about the model of a good team, the mold, and there's usually one person driving the bus besides Ron, driving that team bus. And then there were a lot of people riding the second, third row that were ready to go. And then there's the ones that are in the third and fourth row, but hopefully they all felt as the team. All those years we had nobody that played selfishly. Um, Sometimes in this day and age, someone's got to score 25, 30 points and get their stats regardless of how the team did. We totally were the opposite of that. I can remember Kelly, we played at Butler, played a Kentucky team that was nationally ranked. We were nationally ranked, and um, I needed her to get some more points. And at halftime, I said, I need to have you take 5 shots this second half in the lane. It's there. You can do it. Take the shots. And at the end of the game, we lost the game. I think it was actually in overtime, but we lost the game. And I asked Kelly, I said, you didn't get the 5 shots. She said, I didn't want to be perceived as being selfish. And that was her mold of how to play, but that carried over into all the other teams. And Ty Harris was the same way, that she played to win. She didn't play to get her numbers. And I think that helped it set the climate for all the players. It's not about me, it's about the team. Um, I think the most difficult times from a coaching standpoint is the players that didn't get the minutes and didn't get to play. And I remember Natalie came over, starter from Park Tudor. They knocked us off in the sectional, and we ended up not starting her. Very tough decision, but we end up kind of not selling it, but talking about 6 men off the bench, and in the day and age of having a 6-person sit and watch and see what's going on and help us from that standpoint. And she accepted that and ended up winning the Tressler Award, and so the rest is history there. But the players that were good enough to maybe play at some places didn't get the same minutes at our place. From a coaching standpoint, probably one of the biggest disappointments is to not see them they were part of the success, but sometimes as kids and parents, they may not have felt like they were part of the success, if that makes any sense. And that always kind of bothered me, and still does this day. And then there's a few players there that think about, man, if things could have worked out, she would have had even a better successful record, maybe individually versus what the team. Now, hopefully, she's sitting there going, so this is how people look at those kind of situations.
But I remember our last season, we had 6 seniors. We had a couple seniors that dressed, but I remember a couple times getting told by them, "Don't put me in. Don't put me in." they were happy to be on the team, but they didn't want to. It was a tough game coming, that we were playing. And don't put me in. I'm like, yeah, okay. I don't know if I ever told a coach
I didn't know that. But that was...
What from a legacy perspective, what do you hope that your former players took from that experience, Ron?
Well, I hope that they saw the Christian influence that I tried to be an example for. And I think Rick and I both, and because of Doc, also looked and tried to present that, and being Heritage Christian coaches, I think the school expected that from us. And so, but also that they looked at the discipline that we came across, and it was good. So that they had fun, didn't have any regrets. I think that's what I hope. And I hope that they thought I was a pretty good hugger too. So,
and it's interesting that from a Christian standpoint, we centered up and prayed after every game, all those years, win or lose. And we even invited the other team, and we had some teams that would participate, some teams that wouldn't participate. So be it, but every year we did. And I remember it might have been the first year at the state finals, because when you win, and all of a sudden they clear the floor and they get the stands out and all that.
And hurry up.
I told the girls, I don't care what they do, win or lose, we're going to go and pray at the center court just like we did. And we got that prayer in before they kind of ran us off. But I think that was part of that Christian spirit that we had. That was important to the program.
I remember one of the years I had to go into the locker room
I
and
know
get
it.
two
Yeah,
girls.
Trident Central hurt.
Yes. We didn't win, and we were expected to win, and we had a couple people, and no, I don't want to come back out. I raised my voice to a couple young ladies and told them to get their tush out there.
Yeah.
That was a tough loss.
Yeah.
And we pray whether we win or lose. And a couple of them left because it was devastating, quite honestly.
Yeah.
I remember Triton Central was all giddy and excited. And
Everyone was giddy and excited to beat you guys.
But they joined us, and I can remember saying we're going to wait to have the whole team out here.
Yeah,
and we got
that's character building stuff right there.
Yeah,
because that's facing something that you don't want to face when
the loss was too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, the athletic director didn't help us that night.
What are you most, when you think about those 15 seasons, what comes to your mind of what are you most proud about?
That I don't have to do it again.
Yeah.
Actually, you look back, and at the time I didn't think too much about it. It was kind of almost like an expectation and kind of like business, and the circumstances of getting into the coaching with the Doc scenario and Cindy and Leah and Hannah, and it just went from time to time and just back to back, and probably never really sunk in too much until later. And even today, sometimes somebody will say something about it, and I go, well, yeah, I guess so. I don't live off of that. Now, having done it, I say I enjoy it, but I very seldom even talk about it or say something to somebody about somebody the other day said, well, they've won 3 state championships and man, he's a good coach and all that. I don't think in terms of, well, that's nothing. So it was, I thoroughly enjoyed it. The players I enjoyed, the accomplishments that we as a whole group, this program, coaches, players, but it's not something that I walk around saying, I'm the guy.
Yeah.
I wasn't the guy.
Enjoyed the journey, but it's not your identity.
Yep. And if anything, the girls can go out and say that because actually they're the ones that did it.
Yeah. Ron, what are you most proud of? And you had an extra 5, right? So 20 years?
20 years. Just that God blessed me with being on the bench with 2 great coaches and also so many girls that went through Heritage Christian that I got to know about. There's times that I find myself regretting that American States was sold and I had reached the level senior VP that, wow, but I would have never got to know, and you could start naming 100 different young ladies.
What are some, when you look back on 15 and 20 years of coaching, what are some core memories outside of those 2 games where those, you guys were like, oh, we should have got that one. And that was a special team. And unfortunately it didn't fall our way. What are some core memories or highlights for you guys when you reflect that you're like, that moment, that was wonderful or whatever? What are some of those that stand out to you?
Well, there's obviously there's many, but 2 that come to mind very quickly. We went up, I think it was Stratman's freshman year, and we went up and played Whitney Young in Chicago, and they were nationally ranked, and we went up there and played them on their court, and we ended up winning the game. I remember them coming out in warm-ups, and they were doing jump ropes and doing the Charleston Brown, all that kind of stuff, and we went up there and won, and that was probably we could play. The other one was probably when we played at Lucas Oil Kelly, Claire, Emily's that senior year. We had beat Oak Hill by about 20 the year before, and they had Courtney Moses, who's ended up being Miss Basketball. Then we played them at Lucas Oil, which was an atmosphere was great. But a minute 40 seconds to go in the game, and it was tied. I had committed that we're gonna take the last shot, and that's extremely hard to do.
Yeah.
But I knew I had some players that could take care of it. Emily, Kelly, and Claire in particular could take care of the ball and not turn it over. Most teams can't go more than about 30 seconds, and then there's something goes wrong. And we took it all the way down. I said, I'm going to call a timeout. And I think that's probably when I was kind of talking around. I'm going to call a timeout at 10, and then we're going to set up a play, and then run that play in line play. So that was pretty exciting. And we called a timeout. We 4 across, and we were going to have as a particular play and a backup play. And Claire got the ball. That was the secondary option. Got the ball, turned around and drove to the middle and shot it. I believe she shot it left-handed.
Yes.
Left-handed, and made it to win the state championship, which was kind of like, whew, I'm glad that's over. Interesting thing is that week she was practicing that same shot, kind of goofing around left hand. I said, what are you doing that for? And she went, well, I said, no, you need to shoot it the right way because you never know when you're going to get a shot. Well, the rest is history that she's made that shot.
Yeah.
And that was overtime, and Courtney and Moses they were a really good team.
They were a good
They
team.
could beat a lot of 4A schools. So those two just instantly jump out in my head that, of course, we played the day before that game. We played football. I tried to lighten up the practice a little bit. So instead of warming up, we did a little football game thrown in. I'm going in on hindsight. That was probably the dumbest thing I ever did because if someone had gone down and got hurt. But Courtney Moses talked to one of the girls and said, what did you guys do the day before the game? And they said, well, we stayed home. We actually did football during practice. And she says, you did that. They went down the day before in the motel room and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know, I guess we won, so we did the right thing.
That worked
In
out.
hindsight, that was probably not the smartest thing to do.
Do you remember what happened during that Chicago game? Do you guys remember?
Oh,
It went black. There was a storm.
Yeah.
And we
power
had
went
to
out.
go and sit.
The power went out, and we had to go.
We did. Yeah.
So I remember that gig going up there, and we didn't start out very well. At first, it's like, woo.
Yeah.
Then the power went out, and 2 different teams returned to the floor. And I remember.
I do remember that now. Yeah.
Yeah. That was quite a game.
That was significant win.
Yeah, that was a on the map kind of thing.
Yeah.
For sure. What from Ron, what are some highlights that stand out to you?
I think winning the city championship 15 times in a row. I was always wanted to beat Cathedral and Chittard. And being able to do that, those were and then I think riding on the bus to the state finals was always something that we made it. And, I think those times.
You remember when those people were booing us? We had Heritage Christian and we were getting booed going into the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Couple games that stand out to me. If you guys remember regional final at Batesville, we were playing Southwestern.
Southwestern.
Oh,
and they
after
had
the
a
game?
coach
We were down by 20,
at halftime.
and I mean, everything going right for them.
You were there on that game?
Yeah.
That's I think I broke.
That was
I
08.
think I broke the locker room door on that one.
Yeah, that was 08. And then
I thought you had broken it too. And I was walking in afterwards, and then one of the first games with Kelly as a player that the name the Squirrels,
Screaming Squirrels.
Screaming Squirrels, because they and Courtney was in the locker room, your daughter, and
She was part of it.
they were playing the boombox, and Rick picked up the boombox, and it was Kelly's boombox, and she thought for sure he was going to throw it at her or just throw it
Well,
on
it's
the ground.
Triton Central, and Ron are out, and we could hear this screaming and the whole works. And so we walk around and say, let's listen and see what's going on. And they were just having the biggest party. You walk in there, and I think Natalie Orr had her hat on or something up dancing around, and they were just jamming away. And the boombox going, and my daughter, Courtney, and she still loves the story to this day, is kind of standing there in the background. I said, took a look at her, and I picked up that boombox, and I wasn't going to throw it, but boy, it sure looked like I did. And Kelly's eyes got so big that yeah.
That was
The Southwestern game, when we won that game you brought up, that's when we had to get the police escort to walk out of the locker room because we won and our fans were on the court and all their fans were very, very irate.
Yeah.
And we walked through them, and then the police came in and said that you need to wait until it clears out. And I can remember going, nope, we're going out. Team.
And they wanted us to go out the back door too.
Nope, let's get together. We're going to walk. Don't stop. Just walk right through the crowd.
Yeah.
You know, somebody threw a dollar bill in front of you.
Those are these those kind of stories. But yes,
that was an incredible game.
That was.
And they kept shooting.
Yeah.
I mean, why wouldn't you slow the game down and let the clock be your friend?
Yeah.
But no. And I asked the announcer, who was the backup coach, or why, and he says, I was sitting there on the radio going, I don't know why she's shooting, and we came back and won.
See, that was an example, though, when you have the certain players, because that was Kelly and Claire and Emily, they each took the role and took it up to the next level. And the stuff we came out and we spread it out. I remember doing an H offense for the middle and just opened everything up, and it just started picking away time after time after time. And
that group always figured out a way to respond. And then you had a round two of that with Sydney and Ty and just another group that figured out a way to respond. And obviously a ton of great players in between. And what an experience. I guess last question for you guys before we wrap it up. What are some things that you guys take away from this experience as you guys did this thing together, and just the idea of friendship and friendship with Doc and friendship with each other, and picked up a lot of friendships along the way. What stands out to you guys when you reflect on that type of thing?
My first reaction is we didn't have to make a special effort to become friends or to okay, I got to do these certain things. It just happened. It was kind of like having family around. I knew Doc from a certain perspective for so long. Ron knew him even more, and we were kind of all real close from that standpoint. So when all this took place, it wasn't like we had to make extra efforts. I got to make sure Ron's happy or sad or telling him what to do. We just all blended together, and I talked about the inner circle. We were just all there without having to make any special effort. I mean, you were involved with it, and we didn't have to.
It's mutual effort, right?
It was just
it
just all fell in place. It was very mutual, and hey, it's not about us. It's about what's going on here, and it all seemed just to come together. I don't remember staying up at night wondering what coaches were doing. Sometimes you get into programs where you got to figure out, well, what's the coach doing, and is he helping or hurting, or we were friends doing some basketball, good old Indiana basketball.
That's right.
I was girls were first. We put the girls first, but we needed the response from them that we were doing the right thing. I know I can call Rick at any time, and I may see him quarterly now, but we go to lunch, same place,
Frisch's, big boy.
That's a good.
That's good. But we can start right up as if
Yeah.
we had talked, 5 minutes ago. And I know I got a great friend with both of you guys at any time.
We'd do lunch more often if he would buy, but he never buys at Arnie's. So I had to get a shot in.
I thought
Thank you. Thank you.
you order any of those special salads anymore?
I'm going to have to go to Frisch's and get another big
Yeah,
salad.
big salad.
Those
and
are delicious.
Put everything on there that he can possibly find. Maybe even some dirt from the
I
table.
put everything, except for onions.
He
that's
did not
on-
understand he could go back
I don't think so. Yeah.
because you were a part of that.
Yeah.
He'd go to the salad bar and come back, and it's kind of like, what the heck? Well, I got a little bit of everything.
First time I've seen someone put goldfish on a salad.
Yeah,
First time ever.
yeah.
That was amazing.
It was good.
Rod, you can go back a second time.
Well,
you were
guys,
part of the fishes. I didn't.
oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was there you guys did that for 15 years. I was there for 5, but it was a blast.
I remember we went to, was it Seymour to watch a game, and we came back and
Scouting.
and we stopped at a Mexican restaurant and we ordered and
You were
got
on
some-
that one?
The lights were kind of out. Like off?
and the lady
Oh, yeah.
said, next time you come, just say number 9.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was run by the cartel.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We were like, yeah,
we're the only
yeah.
people there.
We didn't get into. We had so many funny stories about going to scouting of going scouting and realize that there wasn't even a game.
Yeah. Wrong night.
Oh, and going and realize the game, there's different time zone, and the game's now over. We
You
had
did
so many
that,
of
yeah.
those that's probably before GPS, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And we sent Courtney to a couple of those.
Winchester.
We went to
Winchester.
Winchester, and they said that's tomorrow.
The trip wasn't about the scouting; it was about getting together, right?
Yeah. It's a
Yeah.
coming
That's
up.
what we
It's
always
the friendship.
said. Yeah, just 2 hours over to Westfield and 2 hours back, and Jim's boarded up, nobody there in the snowstorm, but we enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thanks for coming on and sharing a story. And you guys I asked you about legacy. It's probably really hard to answer about yourself, but I can tell you guys created just an incredible legacy and really impacted a lot of people's lives. And, you brought up one player with, 3 kids, 2 and under. And, you really were part of equipping next generation to be, in this instance, you equip them to be mothers and, leaders in their profession and to do the next thing. So just want to commend you guys for who you are as people and what you were able to accomplish on the basketball floor. And I'm just thankful that we were able to build a friendship over such a long period of time and bond over a game that we all love and over a guy that impacted all of our lives and the guy of Doc, and just to enjoy the journey. Just want to thank you guys for that. It's really incredible.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for our listeners for joining another episode of Risk and Resolve. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to Risk and Resolve. See you next time.